There is a truth they never told you, a truth they hid in the cracks of history, buried beneath the noise of a 1,000 voices, hoping you would never find it. But the thing about truth is, it refuses to stay buried. They told you to be patient. They told you to wait your turn. They told you that life is what it is and that change comes slowly. Too slowly for you to see it. I still have a dream. But what they never told you is that change often comes the moment you decide you've waited long enough. I still have a dream. They said you were too small to matter. They said you didn't have the power to turn the tide. But what they never told you is that a single drop can begin a flood. They gave you rules written in the language of fear. They built walls around your dreams, tall enough to make you think you could never climb them. But what they never told you is that walls crumble faster than they rise when you stop believing they are unbreakable. I still have a dream. They filled your ears with their definitions of success, their visions of who you should be. They told you to color inside their lines, to walk on the path they drew for you. But they'll have a dream. What they never told you is that the world was built by people who dared to draw outside every line. I still have a dream. They told you that failure means you've reached the end. I still have a dream. That mistakes are proof you aren't worthy. But what they never told you is that failure is simply the soil from which greatness grows. And they made you believe that your voice didn't matter unless it was loud enough to shake the earth. I still have a dream. But what they never told you is that even a whisper can move mountains when it speaks truth. They made silence feel like defeat. They made solitude feel like weakness. But what they never told you is that some of the strongest battles are won where no one is watching. They told you to keep your head down. They told you not to dream too big, not to ask for too much. I still have a dream. Not to expect more than what you've been given. I still have a dream. But what they never told you is that you were never meant to bow to limits you didn't choose. I still have a dream. They tried to convince you that power lies in their hands, that you must wait for them to give it, to grant it, to decide you are ready. I still have a dream. But what they never told you is that you were born with the very power they pretend to own. They told you history is fixed, already written, unchangeable. But what they never told you is that history is alive. I still have a dream, and it waits for someone like you to take the pen. They told you that storms destroy, but what they never told you is that storms also clear the path. I still have a dream. They told you that the night is dangerous, that you should fear the dark. But what they never told you is that the stars only show their glory when the sky is black. They told you to settle, to accept what's in front of you as all you'll ever have. I still have a dream. But what they never told you is that settling is the slowest way to lose your soul. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real reason they never told you. Because if you knew the truth, you would rise, you would stand, you would speak, "I still have a dream." And the moment you did, the world they built would tremble. They told you there was nothing there, that the corners you wandered into were barren, lifeless tomorrow, too drenched in darkness to ever yield anything worth holding. I still have a dream. They spoke with the certainty of those who had never dared to walk where you walk, who had never stood and dreamed, who had never stood in the cold, who had never felt the air grow heavy with silence. They swore the shadows would consume. They swore that the dimness would strip you of all hope. Till have a dream that no good thing could be born in the absence of light. But they did not know the kind of eyes you had, eyes that refused to stop searching. I still have a dream. Eyes that knew even the faintest glimmer could be enough to change everything. You moved through those shadowed valleys not as someone defeated, but as someone determined. You did not rush. You listened. You waited. Still have a dream. You let the darkness teach you what the daylight never could. You began to notice what others missed. The way the air carried whispers of things yet to be. The way even the blackest night holds a quiet promise if you stay long enough to hear it. While they turned away in fear, you leaned in closer, knowing that sometimes the things worth finding are hidden where most refuse to look. I still have a dream. Every step you took into that unknown was a defiance against their certainty. You proved that shadows are not emptiness. They are the space where light has yet to arrive. And because you stayed, because you searched, you found that light. Not the blinding light of midday that needs no courage to stand in. I still have a dream, but the kind of light that has weight and depth, the kind of light that means something because you had to earn it. It was not handed to you. It was not obvious. It came slowly, in fragments, in flickers that others might have missed. I still have a dream. And as you gathered it, piece by piece, you realized the shadows had not been your enemy at all. They had been the veil that kept the impatient away, the cover that protected what was meant for you. I still have a dream. They had hidden treasures, not because they wished to keep them from you. I still have a dream, but because only the ones willing to endure the dark could ever be trusted to hold them. That is why your light shines differently now. It is not the fragile glow of something easily gained, but the fierce radiance of something deeply fought for. You carry it in your hands, in your voice, in your very being. When you move through the world now, you are proof that what others call desolate can be sacred. Have how a dream that what they dismissed as lifeless can be full of promise. You are the evidence that shadows are not the end. They are the beginning of the kind of light that changes everything. And because as you found it there, because you refuse to leave without it, you will never look at darkness the same way again. Oh, there was a time when the noise around you was deafening, when every voice seemed to have an opinion on who you were, where you should go, and what you could become. But then slowly the noise faded. I still have a dream, not because they finally understood you, but because they turned away. The conversation stopped including your name. The invitations ceased. The world that once shouted in your direction grew quiet, and you were left standing in the stillness. For many, that kind of silence is suffocating. For many, it feels like erasure. But for you, it became something else entirely. At first, it was strange to hear nothing but your own heartbeat, to walk without the familiar hum of other voices in the background. Imagine. You noticed how heavy the air felt, how the absence of words could almost press against your chest. But in that quiet, something began to shift. You realized that silence is not always the enemy. It can be a mirror. It can strip away the noise long enough for you to finally hear yourself. And for the first time in a long time, you could. You heard the thoughts you had buried beneath the chatter. You heard the small, steady voice inside you that had been drowned out by the opinions of others. You began to understand that the silence was not punishment. It was preparation. Without it, you'll have a dream. You might never have noticed the strength that was quietly forming in the background of your life. I still have a dream. It was in that stillness that you began to rebuild. I still have a dream. There were days when it felt like the world had forgotten you, but that forgetting gave you freedom. That forgetting gave you freedom. You were no longer defined by their expectations. You no longer had to perform for the crowd. You could take each step without the weight of proving yourself to people who were never truly watching. The silence gave you room to grow roots deep beneath the surface where no one could see. And then something remarkable began to happen. The very stillness that once felt empty started to hum with energy. I still have a dream. You found clarity where you once found confusion. You found strength where you once felt weakness. Every breath in that quiet space became part of a rhythm, a beat, a melody you had never heard before. A song born not from applause, but from perseverance. That song was not loud, but it was unshakable. It was not flashy, but it carried truth. I still have a dream. You didn't need a stage to perform it, because it was never meant for performance. It was meant to sustain you, to remind you of who you are. When the world stops clapping, you began to carry that song with you, letting it guide your steps, letting it remind you that silence does not mean absence. It can mean becoming. And when the time came for you to rise, you rose with a steadiness no one could shake. They didn't understand then where your strength had come from. They didn't see the long nights, the unanswered prayers, the moments when you had nothing but the sound of your own breath to hold on to. They didn't see how the silence had shaped you. I still have a dream, how it had stripped you down to your core and built you back stronger than you had ever been. I still have a dream. You didn't need to shout when you returned. You didn't need to demand their attention. The silence had taught you that real power does not need noise to prove itself. It simply stands unshaken, unyielding, undeniable. And so you walked forward, not to the sound of their applause, but to the steady anthem, that had been forged in the quiet. A song only you could hear. I still have a dream, but one that now carried you everywhere you went.